The day is finally here. I can officially answer all the questions that have been provided to me via Discord, Twitter, private messages, you name it. I've gotten over 100 questions, I think is what I aggregated. So we have a lot of questions to answer about Gears of War E-Day and what to expect in the multiplayer preview that is coming up in just a few short days. I've broken down this video in a few categories via General, Versus, and Horde. I've tried my best to aggregate them in the best way possible, and I'm going to answer them as best as I possibly can without going into too much detail because there's so many questions. So let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about general questions here in this segment. Is micro destruction in Versus multiplayer? Is there chippable cover, breaking glass, things of that nature? And the answer is, I think there's some of that, but there's not much. Yes, we've seen some of that in the campaign, but it's not in Versus. Is the perfect active reload noise gone? It seemed like it wasn't shown in the gameplay, and I don't recall ever actually hearing the reload sound animation, but that's probably because the game is pretty chaotic at times, so it's not a very noticeable sound if it's there. There's a question about controller mapping. Is melee execution mapped badly again? Chainsaw on right bumper. I really can't answer too many questions about controller mapping as I am a keyboard and mouse player, but my assumption is they probably have addressed this, and I will defer to others to answer this in the comments, but they have changed the control scheme even for keyboard and mouse players, so I suspect that that will be a change and addressed. How's the new gore system? Do we finally have that Gears 1 vibe back? And the answer to me, to be like blatantly transparent here, is yes. Gears 1 style gore is back. It's very noticeable from the get-go that there's dark, deep blood, not the Kool-Aid red blood in the game. About customization, is it still just skins, or can we finally customize characters, Halo armor route after tactics? So the answer to that is yes, no. There are no customization to the character skin, so this will be familiar to what Gears 5 was. However, you do have the ability to customize your weapons via the mod systems, but it's not really you customizing it 100%, but like you can add a bayonet to a shotgun, for example. Are there separate faction weapon skin customization again? The answer to that is yes, meaning you have the ability to change the weapon skin depending on the faction or the character skin selected. I believe that's how that question is being asked. What characters are offered in the beta? You're going to have the ability to play as the primary characters from the campaign reveal trailer, and then you're going to be able to play with a few select locust characters such as the sniper and drone. Is it a good entry point for new fans? Does it feel like it has the legs to go the distance? And I think Gears E-Day does have potential here. I don't know how long this is going to go. I really think that the game is going to hinge on Horde Siege and what they do with that and the seasons. I do believe that they have a plan in place. I think it's been too long, and I think they've had a lot of time to answer these questions, but hopefully they do. As a brand new Gears player, is the E-Day multiplayer enjoyable? And this is actually a very fair question. Gears E-Day has a very different multiplayer, but it's familiar at the same time. So I suspect that legacy players like myself who've been playing for a long time will definitely enjoy it because it is refreshed. If you're a new player, I think you're gonna still have to learn to adapt, but I think it is a little bit maybe more easier to get involved with the game given the new mechanics and what they're trying to do. Shotgun is still very, very heavily influenced in multiplayer, but that's not to say that it won't change before launch. Does E-Day mostly cater to 06 vets? Gears is niche. Will new players stick around? And I think Horde will be the way that new players stick around and continue to get better. I think that they can actually improve their skills by playing Horde this time around because you're not really just hunkering down in one particular area, so it might help translate to Versus. So I do think multiplayer is a little bit of both, but I can see more legacy classic players wanting to play that. In your opinion, is the game ready for release? And I would say the game is probably ready to go as it is today, at least multiplayer and Horde Siege wise. I didn't run into anything crazy. I enjoyed both of the experiences. As long as the maps are ready to go and the servers are in a good place, I can definitely say that it seems like we're in a good spot. Full list of modes across PvP and Horde, so I will not answer this fully. I have a video that is already out on the channel that talks a little bit about this, but you'll be able to play 2 game modes in Versus and Horde Siege and Horde Blitz, I guess. Horde Siege Blitz in Horde Siege mode. Anything that immediately worried me or that I'm on the fence about, and at this time I think it's really just about the longevity of the game. Gears 4 had its ups and downs with the supply boxes, and then with Gears 5 it was pretty much on life support and maintenance mode after a year and a half or 2 years, if I remember correctly. So does this game really last the test of time is going to be the question, and I really believe that it's all going to be contingent on how does the coalition plan to play out the ability to enhance Horde Siege and Horde for the casual players, but then how do they implement new game modes and things of that nature for versus and balance that. I believe strongly if they do not go all in on esports and cater more towards the general population, this has a chance to be familiar to how successful Gears 3 was. What surprised me the most was really just Horde Siege. I had no idea what I was walking into. We provided a PDF document that kind of outlined some materials for being able to play the game, and one of the things that immediately stood out in the language was the word extraction. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the Horde section, but Horde Siege is an extraction-based game where if you extract with weapon parts or weapon mods, you can save those and you permanently unlock them. So the idea is to do the missions and get out, and you keep what you have. It's not a battle royale, and it's not a full-blown extraction shooter, so don't get that twisted. Understand that there is some difference there. And in one word, how did it feel to play? Great. I'll say it that way. The word is great. Does it feel like Horde or a completely different Horde? How different is Siege from regular Horde? So I'm going to have a whole video that's already out on the channel that talks about Horde Siege and how different it is from Horde. But if I had to summarize this, as Horde Siege is an extraction-ish style game mode with Horde components, versus Horde is more of a you stick in place, you do your 1 through 50 or whatever you're trying to accomplish in there. Versus Horde Siege is also more chaotic, you're more agile, you're moving around the battlefield, and you have multiple objectives and points of interest to complete. Does classic 50 wave Horde still exist? Any PvE mode besides Siege? So at this time, I can't tell you with 100% certainty that 50 wave Horde still exists, but it seems likely given that there was a Horde playlist in the beta. I did not play that as we were told not to queue up for that. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, we were just told not to queue up for that. And then were there any PvE modes besides Siege? So the answer to that is no, it was just those modes. Are bases still a thing? The answer to that is yes, bases are still a thing, kind of, in Horde Siege. There are points of interest where you need to hold down a specific area or you need to do a specific objective in a certain area. So there are bases, and there is a forge, I believe is what they call it now, in certain areas. So yes, you kind of do have a base, but it's not the concept of classic Horde. What objectives are there, and do they interrupt the flow or improve it? Honestly, I think that there is no interruption to the game mode when playing Horde Siege. Actually, I think it's more important to go do the side objectives and then come back towards your end goal objectives. It doesn't feel misplaced. It doesn't feel like it's out of the way given the size of the map, so the pacing is actually really well. The next question kind of segues into that, or kind of introduces itself to that question, is how long does one Siege game take? And I really think it's going to come down to a few variables. How many people are playing, how familiar they are with the mode itself, and what is your objective? Are you trying to do all the challenges and objectives, or are you just trying to get in and get out? If that's the case, I think you can do a normal, and again, we were only able to play this on rookie difficulty, so you could be in within 10 to 15 minutes. I've had a match go as long as 40. A really great question is Horde Siege 12 player required, or can I play solo with a couple buds? And yeah, you can do both. You can play solo and queue up with people. I don't know if you can solo queue. There might have been an option to do that, but I never did. I don't recall ever seeing an option not to do it. But yeah, you can play with your buddies as well, in a small group. And I noticed that there was like rolling lobbies, and I don't know if that was intentional or what the case may be, but yeah, so you don't necessarily have to have 12 people in the game, because you're going to search up with your party of 4 and go about that, and then 2 other teams of 4 will show up, and they might be doing their own objectives and missions, so you will interact with them at some time, but you won't always be in the same area as them. Can you queue a full squad of 12 players? And no, the answer to that is no, you go in with 4. They might change that in the future, but for now it's 4. Were there any issues for solo players tackling a 12 player mode? And I think this is like kind of a reoccurring theme about 12 players, because it's so different than what we've seen before. So I'm going to kind of answer a lot here. Is the 12 player concept is great. You don't really have any issues. There were some issues with maybe latency. That could be because we were playing with a very limited pool of players players. Maybe location wasn't exactly the best for where a server was located. It could be just that it's a technical test preview and that it's not optimized yet. There's game drivers that just released for me on PC that weren't available at the time. Maybe that helps fix some of those issues. So when I say that there wasn't any issues or anything like that, I didn't really have any problems or concerns other than maybe latency occasionally. Does Siege incorporate teamwork naturally? And I think the answer to that is yes. Like, you don't have to do anything crazy like you would in like I don't know, I'm just gonna say like an MMO or trying to do an Easter egg or something like that. There probably is Easter eggs in this, by the way, but there wasn't anything to discover at the time. So it's really very much visual cues. It tells you what to do. You know where to go. You can see everything on the TACCOM map, so you should be pretty good. Could a small team, say 3 instead of 12, carry the whole game as a challenge run? I would say that's probably true. My assumption is that this game mode is going to scale with the number of players in the game, but it's not 100% sure. I think the Coalition will have to answer a little bit more to that, but that's amazing. A really great and amazing question. Skill cards again, or are they brand new? Is there class progression like 4 and 5? So yes, there is class progressions. Your 4 classes do have levels to them. In the technical preview, they are from level 1 to 10. However, in the full-blown release, it's from 1 to 30. So a little bit of a change from Gears 5, for example, where it was levels 1 through 20. This time around, though, the skill cards are gone and they're now applied to the weapon mods, and your ultimate abilities are a little bit different for the classes. So I think it's going to be more about how you play with the mods versus how you play in synergizing different skill cards. I personally love skill cards. I think they've done a good job of this, but we'll see what it looks like because we only played on rookie difficulty. Does every class feel necessary, or is one clearly the best? And this is actually a great one. I have more details on this in my Horde Siege video that is here for you all to review, and it's about a 10-minute long video that answers a lot of this, but I'm going to hit the high points. Is the medic class and the marksman class seemed very strong. The breacher class to me felt weak. Granted, we're only playing on rookie difficulty and you're only going up to level 10, so you don't have all the weapon mods unlocked. You don't have all the potential in front of you that you might have for that class as time goes on. Do weapon attachment exist here, and what's their role? Yes, weapon attachments do exist in Horde Siege. They do carry some significant weight because it's going to be how you play, so they are there. Their role is really to enhance the ability, like I mentioned in the prior question. Are bosses actually memorable or just health sponges? And I think they're really going to have some good impact on your memory. I remember loading in and fighting my first few bosses, and I was like, wow, actually that's actually insanely cool. I think they will have some of the effect of what you saw from Gears 5, but maybe amped up, especially as the difficulty ramps up. How punishing is failure? It's hard to say. I don't really have a lot of information on that because playing on rookie difficulty, you didn't really fail missions, but it did suck when you didn't complete a mission because you were losing out on energy. How replayable is it after 10 matches? Do you want another? I would say yes. I mean, the game mode is so significantly different than Horde, where grinding waves 1 through 50 and doing the same thing over and over again does get very repetitive. At least with Horde Siege, at the current state, you're always on the move. You're always doing something. Now, in this section, we're going to talk a little bit about versus multiplayer. There's a lot to go over here. I'm going to try to condense this to the best that I can. There's a lot of questions that I probably won't answer, but more information will be out there at the time of this video. Wall bouncing. What's changed? What is it like not actually being able to wall bounce? If not, wall bouncing is a little different, but it's still there. There's like a little bit of a cancel movement, kind of like an elbow slide or shoulder charge into cover, but it's definitely still there, and so I would definitely encourage people to continue to wall bounce. Let's get actual feedback on what that looks like. I think for most of us, because Versus had limited time, may not have all the answers to that, but I can definitely tell you that the professional players did figure it out fairly quickly. Does movement still feel like Gears after a few hours, or a different shooter wearing the Gears skin? And it's Gears. It's definitely Gears. It feels different at first, but it's still definitely Gears. Does movement have momentum or weight now, or can you instantly change direction? I think that's going to be a kind of a two-answer approach here, is that the characters feel like they have weight, whereas in Gears 5 it felt like they were sliding on glass. But then also they can change direction on a dime, but I think that's also kind of more of a movement expertise question, that it really just depends on the caliber of the individual and their settings. Movement plus roadie run speed, which title is it closest to? 3, 4, 5? At first I felt like it was slow pace, but as more time went on, it felt like a little bit faster. faster. I'd say this is probably a good combination of 3, a little bit of 2, and maybe some 5. So it's a little hard to answer that because you're going to probably be like, what, 2 is too slow, but it is got its moments where it's a little slower. Is sliding as good as it looks? Can slide cancel halfway through? I couldn't notice if I could slide cancel while sliding, which is similar, like a tactic that you see a lot in Call of Duty. So I think it's a full-blown slide, but playing on keyboard and mouse is probably part of the issue there. New movement challenges. What's on the things you should know gamer list? So this is one of those that you really just are going to have to be able to try yourself and get your hands-on experience with. I would say that getting familiar with being able to run up and down cover or jump over cover is a new mechanic, and you can find times, especially on the map Market, where there's going to be times where you're trying to control a hill, for example, but then someone climbs cover and they kill you, especially on the outdoors. I can see some of this being a change of pace because we're so used to being able to just kind of have that straightforward movement, but now you're jumping over walls, you're jumping on top of cover systems. It's really nice. The Gnasher is 6 shots plus single shell reload. Is the Gnasher meta still king or nerf? It's still the king. I think that there's a potential for power weapons to come into play, but in terms of your default weapons, it's still the king. And I say that because there's no stopping power, at least from what I could tell with the assault rifles. Pop shotting like 1 and 3 or blind fire like 4 and 5. ADS quickness, hit detection, pellet spread on the wall. So this is a great question. Pop shotting is definitely, at least seems to be broken at this time. It doesn't really inflict damage. It plays more like 4 and 5, where you're definitely wanting to, you know, shoot your shots from a blind fire perspective. Everything does seem a little bit ramped up and quick. Hit detection, hard to really speak on this because it was a technical beta. Is it center screen shooting? No, it's still by the barrel like the prior recent games. Active reloads, is it like an OG Gears or a Judgment style? I'm gonna say more like an OG Gears, more like 5, where the tuning started to change. Are wrap shots and camera abuse impossible shots? Back A can stay. It definitely still exists, at least what it felt like from the few games that I was able to play. The controller players definitely have that ability, and the up A is still in the game as well. Do maps feel built to support multiple modes and the new features? I would say that they seem to be developed for the new mode Control, which is an objective-based mode, kind of like King of the Hills / Domination. I think that's really what it is. Can old maps be remade at all, given how vertical the gameplay is now? I am not a designer by any stretch, but I could definitely see where some legacy maps could make their way back, given how the game is now. They might tweak them and modify them, similar to how I think Bungie did with some prior Halo 1 and Halo 2 maps for Halo 3. Like, I think Cold Storage received some changes, which was a remake of some, and I'm drawing a blank on that name, but it's similar to that idea. Are emotes cut to only the tactfully useful ones? There are no emotes or graffiti sprays, at least at this time in the game, so I don't suspect that that's going to be there. Are power weapons still map defining, or do they feel less important? I think they actually are map defining because there are a few weapons on the map, especially the Market map, that if you get them, they can change the feeling of the game. Spawn trapping is not really noticeable in the game, at least this time, because you're not always coming out at the same 2 locations or 3 locations, but it could be just the fact that we don't know these maps as much as we did the games from the prior ones. The last question I'm going to end this with is field of view console. Is there a field of view? As a PC player, there was always a field of view in 4 and 5. That does not exist in E-Day, and I think that's a choice. We'll have to confirm that. Maybe it's just a limitation thing for now, but if it wasn't on the PC build, I assume it's definitely not on the console build. So this answers all the questions that I received and tried to consolidate for you all. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys are all thinking. There's so much content on the channel and other channels, and I hope that you all truly enjoy your experience with Gears of War E-Day. Let me know what you're most excited about, what your other questions are, and I'll try to answer them in the comment section below. Until the next video, peace.